Reading Explorer. Number 4. Investigation. In the lab with Marcella and Alphonse. Hi guys, and welcome to a new episode on the channel. Today we're talking about in the lab with these two scientists, Marcella and Alphonse. So let's get started. There's a lot of things that happen with Marcella and Alphonse, and why it's called In the Lab is because we do have a little interview with them by National Geographic. There's a lot that happens inside this world, as I have told you in a lot of videos by now. But in all of them, they always meant some of the things that are not so important to the world other than diseases and, I guess, cancer. But today we will be talking more about all this stuff with, I guess you can call this scientific, as we know how much this science stuff has been going for ages. But since about the coronavirus outbreak, we haven't actually had much more time to learn more about this because we were so concerned about the corona. But now, since I'm making a video about this right now, I decided that we should just talk about it a little right now with Marcella and Alphonse. So how about we get started already? Marcella and Alphonse are partners in a scientific lab. They search for unusual diseases and unusual deaths, like I guess fake deaths sometimes. And most of these, they realize, are from some of these blood and tissues stuff. And some of them are cancer and all these investigation stuff. If you ever watch any of those crime shows, which I never actually like to watch at all, even just by looking at it, there's a lot that happens to be inside this world. Even if I did watch a few mystery shows, there's a lot that we can still find out about mysteries themselves. Now, I'll be just reading a few National Geographic questions and then I'll be talking about their answers. At what point do you get called in? This answer is by Marcella Fierro. They get called in whenever there's a serious death, unexpected or violent sort of where allegation of a foul play. It is when bodies just tap over, and before they get buried in the ground, they start investigating it, trying to find every piece of it and taking samples from it and testing them in the lab. If they find something unusual like a bit of poison, then they would immediately give the body as a little warning to the public. Then what? How do you proceed? They take umpteen times of samples. Tissues, blood samples. This is not blood at all. And what I mean by tissue is not this tissues, the muscle tissues. The liver, the lungs, spleen, hair, nails, yuck, and the heart itself. Lop, dop, lop, dop. Exactly, and that's how all these samples seem to happen inside this world. All these themes seem to be able to fit into one small thing of the world. Just like how this much area can be contained back into all this much area, there's a lot more that we might even think of before we actually make the stuff itself. Next question. So the technology you use to detect poisons in a corpse must be pretty sophisticated. And they say and Alphonse Paul says he calls it the vanishing zero. 1960s, it took 25 millimeters of blood to find something unusual like morphine, for example. But today, we just need 1 millimeter of the blood to just detect the morphine. and suffocation, and it's actually they try to find out more about it. And cyanide works like in the movies by like a spy bites a tube of it and then they die instantly. It works like that. It also happens pretty dramatically and powerfully and tragically, as might say. Is there a profile specific to poisoners? The poisoners try to cover up what he or she does. Poison is the weapon of controlling sneaky people with no conscience or whatever happens. All the people who are poisoners don't actually make the public know that it is a poisoner. And they are scared and manipulated, but they aren't scared of the evidence. They weren't convinced by the evidence. You won't believe that there could be such a thing. A case that sticks in your mind. There was this fellow in the University of Virginia hospital, and he kept getting admitted for having some kind of tumor. I mean, a little pain inside the stomach. And eventually, he was sent home. His wife before he was sent home, his wife came all the way to the hospital and then gave him this banana pudding as a little treat. After he was sent home, we didn't even have time to take a test, and then he died. And we figured out that there was arsenic and there was heavy metals toxicity test on him. But he died before we can even find out about him. By the time someone saw the lab, it was too late. And they called the wife the banana pudding lily. How many cases of suspected homicidal poisonings do you evaluate in the course of a year? Frankly, this is taken by ALPHONSE. There are actually a few cases. These few cases are, it's not like an American character. If you're an American, you would not actually just try to poison him or her. You would just try to shoot her with a gun. For Americans, everything has to be direct. For all over the rest of the world, everything can be a little sneaky. It goes. You're the expert. If you had to design the perfect poison for murder, what would it be made of? Alphonse says, I can think of a few things, but he's not going to share it. But myself, Mr. Sean Han, has made a list of myself, and I'm gonna say this part is over 18 years old people, so any of those under 18, just go out. Alright, so there's arsenic, I believe chlorine into a little liquid. It's possible to make chlorine into a liquid, except even though it's not in its literal natural form. Mercury, I believe. That's all I can think of, by the way. And this is how it works. There's a lot of poisoning that doesn't actually happen nowadays. People stop thinking about poisoning, and they're more worried about the coronavirus, so they are more worried in the vaccine than poisoning other people. Unless they see corona as a useful weapon. There's a lot more things that happen inside this world ever, but even if we do find the cause of how to stop poisoning all over the world, it'd be already too late. Millions of people would have already died. So this is where I'll end this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, click either of these two videos so you'll watch them. And I'll see you in the next episode. Shinhan out.